Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gia Hong, and I'm a Public Engagement Coordinator at Boston Beach MPO. Welcome to our April 2026 Community Advisory Council meeting. I will take us through our meeting notices next. Next slide, please. First, I'll read our notice of non-discrimination. You're invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender, identity or expression, veteran status, or background. You can read the full notices of your rights and protections at www.bostonmpo.org/MPO_non_discrimination. Next slide, please. Our accessibility statement is, this meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1, Level AA standards, and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, or if you have any technical difficulties, please contact me, Gia Hong, MPO staff at jhuang@ctps.org or at 857-702-3654 or via the chat box. Next slide, please. I'll read through our guidelines. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. Participants may mute and unmute themselves. Always remain muted unless actively speaking. To participate in the discussion, please select the raise hand function. You can find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen and a window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or using the reactions button within the toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. Please raise your hand via Zoom if you'd like to use an AI note taker during this meeting. And if you're on the phone, you can use the *9 button to raise your hand. Next slide, please. With that, I'll pass it to Michaela to introduce herself and to conduct the roll call.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela Grenier. I'm the Senior Planner for Public Engagement at the MPO, and I'm going to take us through our role today. So going down the list, we're going to start with 495 Metro West Partnership.
Jason Palich, present.
Thank you. Next, A Better City.
Hi, Scott Mullen and Amir Wilson, present.
Thank you. Next, we have Abundant Housing.
This is Jesse, Abundant Housing. I'm here.
Thank you. Next, we have Bike to the Sea.
Hi, Bike to the Sea. This is Jonah.
Thank you. Next up, we have City of Chelsea. City of Chelsea. Okay, we'll go down next on the list to Codman Square Neighborhood Development Corporation.
Hi, Jacinda Espenshade here for Codman Square in DC.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Conservation Law Foundation. Conservation Law Foundation. All right, next we'll go to Livable Streets Alliance.
Hi, this is Maha from Livable Streets.
Thank you. Next up, we'll go to Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative. Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative. All right, we're going to go down next on the list to MassBike. Oh, and Paulina, thank you in the chat from CLF. We did not hear your audio, but thank you for letting me know. I'll go back in the roll to CLF. Thank you, Paulina. And then just going back to MassBike. MassBike, are you here? All right, going next down the list to Mystic River Watershed Association.
Carl Alexander here.
Thank you. All right, next up, we've got Mystic Valley Elder Services.
Hi, Meg from Mystic Valley Elder Services.
Thank you. And next up, we have Prevention Research Center, PRC. Going next down the list, we have T for MA. Great, thank you. Next up, we have Town Green.
Maureen Aylward and Greg Fetterspiel, present.
Thank you. Next up, we have Town of Natick.
Morgan Griffiths for the town of Natick, present.
Thank you. Next up, we have Transit Matters.
Caitlin Allen Conley for Transit Matters, present.
Thank you. And then last but not least, we have Watertown TMA.
Hi, Sophia, present.
Thank you. That concludes our roll. I'll pass it back to you, Gia.
Thank you, Michaela. Next slide, please. For our next item, we have the chair's report. I will pass it to Caitlin to share that chair's report.
Thank you so much. This will be a relatively short chair's report. I know we welcomed Michaela sort of last time, but just another official welcoming of Michaela as a new person here at the MPO. We are really looking forward to the partnership with you as we navigate this complicated cycles and organization. So thank you so much for your assistance. As you know, at our last meeting, we heard updates about the MPO's public engagement process. We also heard from a number of our members. We have been participating in the multiple other MPO meetings, either Carl, Will, or myself. And there's really been a lot of heavy lifting going on around the TIP and the UPW development cycles, which those studies were agreed on. But it's really important as we think through our role that organizations that are part of this organization are their voices and our voice are really baked into these foundational documents from the start rather than an afterthought. So I hope you all received an email from me either last week or the week before, just as a reminder about office hours and meeting with Ethan LaPointe on the TIP. If at any point folks want to take extra time and speak with Ethan or MPO staff, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and I can help connect you. It's just another way of staying involved in making sure we're all up to date on the process and that our voices can be communicated through this group in those processes. As you know, the board adopted readiness guidelines, which, if I am correct, are to meet 25% design requirements. This is really to help manage the allocation of funding more effectively for the TIP. And so their projects are really ready to advance, and that there are fewer projects that get shifted to out of federal fiscal years. We've been seeing throughout the process that there are some projects that have seen significant delays that have, as a result, had significant cost increase. And these projects, there's a conversation, and I was not present at the last board meeting, so forgive me, Michaela, you can correct me if I'm wrong. They're working through the process of determining which projects get taken off the TIP and which ones sort of take their place. There's I believe, a $435 million backlog and work to allocate what the unprogrammed balance is and adopt a final TIP program. There's fill-in projects that have come up, including projects from the MBTA that are advanced in the design phase. So difficult conversations, hard conversations to have as new guidelines get put in place, and support for future federal fiscal years is sort of out there, and folks sort of transition through this, just like the MBTA. Municipalities, also face challenges when it comes to moving projects forward as effectively and quickly as they want. So Today, I know we're going to hear from more members about their work, which is really great. And we'll spend a good deal of today also talking about youth engagement strategies that will help inform the strategies that we include in our public engagement plan and internal staff resources. So with that, I will just thank Carl and Will and folks for helping to cover the many meetings that we've had, and for Michaela and the rest of the team's support as we try to cover these as best we can. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Caitlin. Next slide, please. Moving on to public comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment at this time? Seeing and hearing none, I will move us along. If any members of the public have questions or comments during the meeting, please raise your hand, and after hearing from advisory council members, the facilitator will call on you. Next slide, please. Next, we will do the approval of the March 9th, 2026 meeting minutes. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please let us know now. Seeing and hearing none, can we get a motion and a second to approve the March 2026 minutes?
So moved, Jason Palich.
Second, Scott Mullen.
Thank you. Making a note that Jason made a motion and A Better City seconded that motion. I will pass it to Michaela to conduct the roll call.
Thanks, Gia. So I'm now going to conduct the roll for approving our March minutes. So I'm going to call on all of our members who are present. And if you are a member who joined us after the attendance roll call, I'll come back to you on the list at the end. So starting with 495 Metro West Partnership, do you approve the March 9th minutes?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving down the list to A Better City, do you approve the March 9th minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving down the list to Abundant Housing, do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving down the list to Bike to the Sea, do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving down the list to Codman Square Neighborhood Development Corporation, do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving down the list to Conservation Law Foundation, do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. And we can hear you now, Paulina. All right, moving down the list to Livable Streets Alliance, do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, and then moving down the list, Mystic River Watershed Association, do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving down the list to Mystic Valley Elder Services, do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. And then moving down the list to T4MA, do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Pete. And Pete, just an FYI, your audio is very, very quiet. We did hear you on that, so thank you. Moving down the list, Town Green, do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Aye.
Thank you. Town of Natick, do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. Transit Matters, do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. And last but not least, Watertown TMA, do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. And for any of our Community Advisory Council members who I didn't call, who weren't here for the initial roll, if you have now joined and would like to both state your presence and then also weigh in on the March 9 minutes, I'll create space for that now. So that was City of Chelsea, Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative, Mass Bike, and PRC. If any of you have arrived, please let me know. Otherwise, I will close the roll. Oh, Mass Bike. Awesome. Thank you, Alexis, for Mass Bike. And Alexis, moving then back up to you. Do you approve the March 9 minutes?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other members who have joined? I missed. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, James, from Massachusetts Health Aging Collaborative. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. With that, I will close the roll for the March 9 minutes. Thank you. And I'll pass it back to you, Gia.
Thank you, Michaela. Next slide, please. Next on our agenda is our member sharing initiative. This is a space for members to share a project or initiative they recently completed or are working on to get feedback, raise awareness, or gain different perspectives. Next slide, please. Today, we have Mystic River Watershed Association and Town Green sharing. Like always, there will be a few minutes for discussion after each speaker. Carl, would you like to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Gia. And hi, everyone. My name is Carl Alexander. I'm a senior manager of Greenways at the Mystic River Watershed Association. I also serve as vice chair of the Community Advisory Council. So it's a pleasure to kind of serve the council in that capacity. And tell you here today, I'll give a brief slide deck to share about our work as an organization and for our Greenways program, what we're currently working on, and then more than happy to facilitate or field any questions. Mystic River Watershed is 76 square miles. It's about the geographic size of Brooklyn, about 600,000 people, but rather than just being a part of one city, we are 21 different municipalities, and it comes with the diversity of people, viewpoints, and bureaucracies that you might expect. But we love being a 501c3 and a nonprofit organization advocating for various environmental related items within that landscape. Just to show you and give you a brief example of what we do in terms of that work, it's a pretty wide range, and we've grown a lot as an organization in the past 10 years. We have about 20 staff, grown from about 3 about a decade ago. So outside of our bread and butter water quality testing work and environmental monitoring, we've expanded to form our Greenways program in about 2015. We have a robust climate resilience program bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars for regional resilience projects related to coastal and inland flooding, urban heat island, building social resilience among communities. We have a robust educational program in our school and community-based organizations. We are working on herring habitat restoration and do a robust stewardship and programming work. If you haven't come out and joined us for pulling some water chestnuts, we'll find you. Very, very bucolic as you're upstream upstream in the Mystic, up by the Mystic Lakes, Horn Pond, like very lush green scenery, awesome kayaking and canoeing with Paddle Boston, our partners, if you haven't been out there yet. And then as you kind of head towards the mouth of the Boston Harbor and the mouth of the river, kind of downstream from the Amelia Earhart Dam, it transitioned into industrial port. The majority of our kind of lower Mystic geography is really tied up in the lower Mystic designated port area. It has a huge kind of history of environmental burdens, but also really important industry that powers and moves our entire region. All of the Northeast food distribution goes through Beecham Street in Chelsea and Everett. Power generation, natural gas, the Tobin Bridge, I-93, 28, 38, 99. Like there's so much both private industrial infrastructure and then also state transportation infrastructure. And I think that's one of the main motivations for us to be and serve on this advisory council, is that we can help to shine a light on environmental burdens that are caused as a result of this infrastructure, but also with knowing that so much of it is in flux and evolving and modernizing, how much opportunity we have to make it safer, to reduce environmental burdens in that process. And we really do center environmental justice in our work. It's making sure that those who are most impacted by environmental justice related issues are at the core to our solutions. We do a lot of community-centered design work, steering committees, strategic planning in order to make sure that underrepresented voices are really centered in our advocacy efforts. We define Greenways, and a shout out to other Greenways groups on the call today who helped to collectively define this definition, but we've defined regionally that greenways are safe and accessible routes for walking, biking, and rolling, connecting people to places, nature, and each other. Underneath that, we really like to look at 4 key outcome areas: mobility, wellness, environment, and resilience. We just wrapped up our 5-year strategic planning process. Happy to share a link in the notes here today if you'd like to view and learn more. We're getting ready for a big push to publish it for Bike Month. Our Greenways is a 25-mile connected network of parks and paths from the Mystic Lakes to Boston Harbor. And then geographically, right, it connects the Minuteman Bikeway and the Tri-Community Greenway to the Alewife Brook Path and the Mystic River Path and the Malden River Greenway and the Northern Strand and the Boston Harbor Walk. There's all these very iconic kind of greenways that really this comprises of. And I think this is a really exciting number to share. Right now, there are over $213 million worth of projects actively under construction or design comprising this vision. That's not feasibility studies or conceptual design. That is hard design development, permitting, construction projects that are actively ongoing. You can think about the Mystic River Pedestrian Bicycle Bridge. That's a big chunk. The South Medford Connector, Wellington Greenway, Wellington Underpass. And that's not even to include the critical connections feeding into this Greenways network. We're talking about the Rutherford Ave project, McGrath Highway, Boulevard reconstruction, Beecham Street. Oh, Beecham Street is included now in our vision, but and then also Alfred Street, Route 99. So it's like incredible investment that the MPO is making in making sure that this Greenways network is robust and thriving as well. And so we want to make sure that the funds are being steered in the correct manner. But yeah, about halfway, almost 2/3 done, and we got a long ways to go. And so a lot of my day-to-day work is project management. And I'll just wrap up. Like I said, I'll share a link into our strategic plan. And one other thing that I'm really excited about, if you're free on Thursday night, want to go on a bike ride to learn more about this work and this project, we are doing a bike wayfinding audit starting at Assembly Row at 5:30 p.m. this coming Thursday. We are doing a Mass Trails funded wayfinding plan process for the Alewife Brook and Mystic River reservations. The idea is we will apply for Mass Trails DCR funding to implement a DCR plan on DCR property. So hoping to kind of remove some of the red tape and really get a cohesive wayfinding network in place for our greenways because it currently doesn't exist. With that, I'll open up to any questions or comments or thoughts, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Carl, so much for sharing. If anybody has any questions or comments, just raise your hand and come off mute.
Just a thank you. That was an impressive presentation and an impressive amount of work that's actually underway. So I can tell you know how to get it done, which is really great to see those incredible projects that are going to be coming to fruition. So could you just remind me at what time on Thursday so I can have it for the notes?
Oh yeah, thanks. I'll put a link to the calendar event in the chat. So this coming
Awesome.
Thursday at 5:30. Thank you, Caitlin.
I guess I have one question. In terms of seeing how much in dollars you're moving and the number of projects that you are successful at moving forward, what would you share as sort of a best practice or an approach that your organization has taken to be on top of it and to move these things forward?
Yeah, thanks. And I like to say we're like the Lorax for the river. We speak for it, but we don't own any of the property. And a lot of these projects, right, it kind of scales this spectrum. Like some of them we're just advocating for, keeping an eye on them, like the pedestrian bridge. Others we are managing. We get permission from the landowner to manage through design or sometimes even construction. So Shore Drive Greenway in Somerville is an example of that project like that. Or Wilmington Channel Park in Charlestown. But I think what success is yeah, it's like starting small, right? Like pilot as the process, prove that you can do it time and time again and build reputation over time. Like I came into this role at the end of 2022 with Myra already having like a really stellar representation, you know, on greenways and the work of my predecessor, Amber. And so I think, you know, we really like to, I think it's a little bit, we play a little bit more of the inside game in terms of advocating with our institutions and partnering with our institutions. And we really, you know, we really do seek support from our private funders, our private foundations, to really put in those dollars for the catalytic work on projects, initial community engagement, feasibility studies, and conceptual plans. Get those done so that they can be activated and adopted, you know, after all the block and tackle, and you find a seam and you're ready to go, and a public agency is ready to go on a project. So we work really hard to, again, kind of do that initial legwork for our public agencies so that they can then adopt a project formally for design, development, and construction.
It's really helpful. Sounds like you're doing the work early on with your different organizations to get buy-in and to move them forward with the consensus.
Yeah, I think Clippership Connector in Medford's a really great example of that. We were really involved early on with support from the Solomon Foundation and several others. So, you know, from there we were able to get DCR to adopt it. Took a long time, but that's kind of the nature of the work. It takes about a decade or so from concept to realization for a lot of these projects. So, yeah, thanks, Scott.
Yeah, Carl, thank you. I just, I don't have a question. I just want to point out for those who missed it, in the last decade, you went from 3 staff to 21. It's evident by the impact that you're having and the ubiquity, it seems, that Myra has in the conversations around here. And I just want to say, great job. Are you going to continue to grow, or what's the plan?
No, that's a really great question. Thank you, Scott. I mean, yeah, it might be now. I kind of say 10 years. It's probably our executive director, Patrick, came on board at I think he's been director around 15 years or 16 years now. So maybe it's like early 2010s, right? Incredible executive leadership and board leadership, I would say, really driving that change. I think a pivot from, you know, from just focusing on an environmental kind of like water quality, water scientists, water science, water testing, kind of really core work. Kind of incorporating an equity lens was really critical to our growth, and really understanding that we needed to have a holistic understanding of our watershed in order for it to be thriving. Parks need to be clean. They need to improve water quality, which will then improve water quality, right? We need to get residents and community members involved. How do we do that? We get them young in schools. We need to get all of our municipalities working together on addressing climate resilience. Great, we have a resiliency program now. And so that equity lens has been critical to our changes and growth as an organization. And I think our foundations reciprocated that, and public agencies as well through their funding programs. And then in terms of growth from here, I don't know. We're entering lean times, I think, as everyone is probably right now. So maybe not so much in the near future, but there's a stronger need, I think, as an organization, more at the coordinator level, to again reach community members a lot more effectively in this work.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Carl, so much for sharing again. I'm going to move this along to Town Green. Maureen or Greg, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Gia. I can share my screen. Let's see. Oops. Hold on just a sec. Yeah, so thanks for having us. I'm Maureen Aylward from Town Green, and I'm joined today with by Greg Federspiel, who is the March Director here at Town Green. We'll just take you through some slides. We started out in 2015 as a steering committee of the Gloucester Meeting House Foundation, which is the first Unitarian church in Massachusetts. But, you know, we quickly saw that climate was going to be a very big issue. So we became a 501c3 in 2022 at the very beginning. And for a long time, we were just a small group working on the challenges of climate change and the threats of climate change on Cape Ann. A couple of years ago, we decided to pivot towards two new initiatives that I'm going to talk to in just a moment. But we are working on one to add capacity to municipalities around resilience, mostly coastal adaptation projects, which Greg will talk about shortly, and also to work in neighborhoods that are vulnerable. That's environmental justice neighborhoods here in Cape Ann, mostly Rockport and Gloucester, and also to really look at how we prepare the residents of Cape Ann for these climate events or climate impacts. And we decided to do that through emergency preparedness. This is where we work. Cape Ann region is also home to CADA. And we work in all four of the communities. We do have a bit of a stretch out to Ipswich and some of the other smaller towns as part of our Cape Ann March working group project. But as you can see, we're out in the middle of the water here. A peninsula and Rockport and part of Gloucester are an island. And so all of the four communities are at risk for different threats, whether that's infrastructure, whether that's intense flooding from either sea level rise, storm surge, or extreme rain events. So we are looking at flooding in a lot of our areas. As I mentioned, we have shifted from a long time focus on climate awareness education and community engagement to these two new initiatives, Cape Ann March, which is a municipal working group, and also the Neighborhood Resiliency Project. I'm going to hand it over to Greg to talk about Cape Ann March.
Thanks, Maureen. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for giving us this time. So MARCH, which stands for Mitigation, Adaptation, and Resilient Climate Hub, aims to be a convener of our area municipalities, different community-based organizations, academia, and residents, concerned residents, and convene them to learn about different ways to better prepare ourselves for the changes that are happening and to become more resilient as a region. We serve as a clearinghouse of information, so we collect a lot of information, case studies, funding opportunities, and make that available to our partners to help them in their work. And we really see ourselves as being that facilitator of different solutions and efforts. Maureen will talk more about the Neighborhood Resiliency Project. We are also embarking on a regional 2.0 process for the municipal vulnerability planning effort. Those of you who know that process, it's a fairly prescriptive one from the state, and they are asking communities to go through a second round of in-depth planning that has an emphasis on reaching folks who typically don't get involved in the planning process. And so this time around, we'll be working hard to involve our EJ community members or more vulnerable populations, whether they be seniors or less well off or in positions of typically not getting engaged. Certainly, one of the areas that we are focused on is infrastructure and how we can be better anticipating the challenges that our infrastructure is having, will have as the climate accelerates, changes accelerate. And certainly transportation is front and center on some of those infrastructure needs. We're at the end of the line of 128, and a good chunk of that end of the line is subject to severe flooding threats. As 128 comes into Cape Ann and then crosses over the Annisquam River into the rest of the tip of Cape Ann, significant challenges of being in low-lying areas where flooding will be severe. There's only two bridges, vehicle bridges onto the second half of the Cape, and both of those bridges are subject to severe flooding. a lot of other road networks as well. And we are at the end of the line of the Rockport branch of the MBTA. And again, that rail line passes through miles of marshes and low-lying areas that are subject to flooding, which is a big concern of ours going forward. So becoming more resilient and anticipating the infrastructure upgrades that we need, a big focus for us. Second area is this whole focus on individuals and neighborhoods, and I'll turn it back over to Maureen to talk about the Neighborhood Resiliency Project.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Greg, for that overview. When we were looking at how best to engage residents of Cape Ann around emergency preparedness, we thought about neighborhoods, that we have a lot of low-lying areas, a lot of neighborhoods that are at risk. And we decided to work with the downtown and environmental justice communities. But what we also decided to do first was to build a network, what we call the Neighborhood Resiliency Network, of nonprofit organizations through which we could reach their clients and get them prepared first. So we've been building this resiliency network across Cape Ann, and I'll get to that in just a moment of like who's into it and what we're doing with them. But we came in our listening sessions, which we did with these community-based organizations. We did it with elected leaders and community leaders. We talked to residents, and we found out that the need really boiled down to providing a neighborhood, a family disaster plan. It's like a household plan. People were interested in getting a go bag and learning about what was in a go bag, and then receiving a go bag. So that's what we decided to do. Those three things and all the programs that we deliver, and that we do it one-on-one and drop-in sessions. We do small group sessions like this picture here shows us at the library. And then we are doing large road shows, or small neighborhood sessions in people's backyards to engage those folks to build neighborhood resilience. But also really at the heart of this project is social cohesion, building the social fabric as we come into this new phase where there's a more isolation than ever in neighborhoods. We want to get neighbors talking to one another again. And we feel like that, neighborhoods are the first point of connection in an emergency where you're going to see those neighbors helping neighbors. We know that this happens. We saw this in the blizzard here in Cape Ann, and we know that people are inclined to help one another, especially their neighbors. But putting that intention behind coming together to talk about how the neighborhood would be resilient comes down to doing some, again, like these backyard events. We'll come to a block party, or we'll come to a neighborhood cookout, or a meeting that people might have around here. There are some neighborhood networks and groups, and it's having people talk to each other using community engagement or an asset mapping, but really talking about how you take care of one another. Who has the chainsaw in the neighborhood, who's got the generator that might have a refrigerator. That's our goal, is to get people talking together to understand what to do in an emergency and how to go about working with their neighbors. A large part of this project is also language access. We found that there was a need for especially Spanish and Portuguese here. And so we added the language access to component, especially through our network partners. We do partner with the City of Gloucester's Emergency Management Office and also the American Red Cross in our work. And that has proved to be a really, fantastic collaboration. We learn a lot from the American Red Cross. We use their materials and also their go bags. And the City of Gloucester Emergency Management office allows us to connect through and understand how the city works in response to an emergency. We offer the Neighborhood Resiliency Project to our municipalities through senior centers, the library. We will attend municipal community events, and also we are setting up a program at one of the senior housing buildings. So we'll be doing a larger program there. This picture shows us at the Open Door Food Pantry doing a one-on-one session, and we have our Spanish and Portuguese interpreter here. Our network partners so far have been the Open Door Food Pantry. We do work with Wellspring and provide classroom programs, and also Action Inc. These are ESL programs where we'll go in and do a short overview of the emergency preparedness. And we're doing train the trainers with senior care, people like the caregivers in the community, and also the care managers who go out to the households, and drop-in hours at Rose Baker Senior Center. We're also going to be at the Gloucester Family Health Center. So that's an overview of the Neighborhood Resiliency Project. We're finding that folks are really excited about it. It's it shouldn't be surprising, but it is like people sit down with us and say, we really need this. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I didn't know what was in an emergency plan. I didn't know I needed to have one for my pets. I didn't know that I needed a go bag for my daughter. So we're getting a really good response. Here's some information here about how we're doing in the first couple of months of standing up the project. We have 30 groups in our resiliency network. We've got 18 engaged, and we're working towards that goal of 30. We do have the 4 Cape Ann communities engaged. We've given out, we're at coming up to almost 100 go bag deliveries out there in the community. And also through 8 programs, we've reached 128 people so far, and that's been wonderful. Again, it's great work, and I feel like also it gives us a chance to address climate threats and explain the issues with flooding and why people need to be aware of it. So that's a bit of an overview from us about Cape Ann March program and the Neighborhood Resiliency Project, and Greg and I are happy to take some questions. Yes, Caitlin.
That was also incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have 2 questions. One, what is in the to-go bag? And 2, I may have missed it when you were speaking. In the process of doing the to-go bags, you're also, I think from what I heard you say just a second ago, you're also helping folks to understand what their plan is and what, how to develop a plan so they know how to proceed should there be an extreme weather event. Is that correct?
Yes. So the family disaster plan or the family household plan incorporates, just like who's in the family, who lives in the household. Do you have pets? Who's the emergency person you're going to call if you're separated? Do you have an out of the area contact? Like all these things that we know we should do. We're sitting down with people and actually helping them fill this out so that they leave our session with a completed plan. So again, we're finding people really taking that with good response. I think your second question was, what is in a go bag? Well, it's first aid kit, a flashlight, a radio, something to keep you warm, like an emergency blanket. They sell these little tiny emergency blankets that you see at the Boston Marathon often at the end. It's making sure that you've got important documents in a waterproof bag. That means, a copy of your passport, your license, a utility bill, your lease or a mortgage statement, anything that proves that you actually live in that place, having some cash. So it's those kinds of items that people have around the house that need to be collected into a bag that you can grab it and go in case you're asked to evacuate. This program also allows us to talk about the evacuation process, should there be one. And in that conversation that we're able to talk about on the island side, well, the bridges might be flooded in, so how do we get up over the bridge?
Thank you.
Sure. Does folks from A Better City have a question? You got your hand up.
I'm sorry, I meant to do the clap emoji. Great work. Thank you so much.
You did that too. Thank you.
Okay. I'll lower my hand now. Thanks.
I have a quick question, and sorry if I missed it. Great presentation, Maureen and Greg. Thank you so much for all your great work and similarly aligned resilience work as well that we're doing here at the Watershed Association. And I've already reached out to our resilience manager to say, do you know about what Town Green is doing? Did I miss that? What you're currently working on for your MVP related work?
Greg can answer that question, but before he does, I want to say that we learned a lot from the Resilient Mystic Collaborative, and we talked to them, and they were just really super helpful and a lot, just gave us the push we needed to get started. So, Greg.
Yeah, so the 2.0 planning process is just getting underway for the 4 Cape Ann communities. They're all up to renew, and so it's a process that the state has awarded MAPC a regional grant to help facilitate the 4 towns going through it at the same time. And so we hope to then engage and sort of be on the ground, helping develop the core teams that the process requires, and reviewing the resilient plans that communities already have in place and see if they need updating, and making sure that the priority projects that are identified address the needs of the most vulnerable in our communities.
That's amazing. Reaching across kind of jurisdictional boundaries. It's really impressive and appreciated to have community-based partner like yourself. Because flooding knows no boundaries.
That's exactly right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Well, our contact information is there if you would like to connect. We would be thrilled to talk with you. And I just want to say that it's just an honor to be connected with the MPO and to be part of this advisory council. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joel, for sharing. And everyone else for participating. I'm going to move us along to our next agenda item. Next slide, please. Which will be a discussion about the public engagement plan. So today we're going to continue our discussion about the public engagement plan. The public engagement plan is very long, so rather than try to cover each piece of it in the next 40 minutes, we wanted to discuss our engagement strategies and get some targeted feedback from you all today. Before we do that, we want to contextualize our conversation by sharing the journey the NPO has been on over the last few years around how we approach engagement. The NPO's public engagement framework aligns strategies and methods to intended audiences, local and project contexts, and anticipated planning outcomes. Our engagement planning framework is guided by the principles of the International Association for Public Participation, or IAP2 for short. The IAP2 spectrum of public participation on this slide here helps define the public's role across different phases and components of the planning process, and helps us develop appropriate engagement strategies. The spectrum helps illustrate the levels of impact community members have on planning and decision-making processes. Going from left to right, each level demonstrates an increasing impact on decisions, from being informed about a project to being empowered and having a key role in the final decision. There's a lot of content within the spectrum, and we highly encourage you all to spend some time and explore it if you haven't already. We can share the link to the spectrum in the chat here. Thank you, Rafira. For the most part, our strategies fall between the informal consult phases. The updated public engagement plan will describe how our practices has evolved to create more opportunities to increase the level of participation with strategies such as this advisory council, our civic education program, and partnerships with community-based organizations. It will also highlight how we've improved our practice around data collection and evaluation. Our practices are continually evolving to meet and exceed federal requirements and the goals outlined in our plan. Next slide, please. A key goal of the public engagement program is adaptability, evaluation, and improvement. It is critical for the MPO to understand who is participating, where gaps in engagement exist, and what themes and trends emerge from public input. The MPO maintains several evaluation tools and processes to help measure the effectiveness of our engagement efforts and to connect public input to planning outcomes. This slide shows a screenshot from our public engagement dashboard, one of the tools we use for evaluation and reporting. The dashboard compiles public engagement data to provide a holistic view of geographic distribution of input and to also examine emerging and evolving comment topic trends. Through these processes, we gain a better understanding of where to prioritize our engagement and the strategies we use to address gaps in the future. In our annual report last year, we've identified gaps in our engagement using this process. One of these gaps is reaching youth. And since becoming aware of that gap in our engagement, we've been working to improve our youth engagement by attending youth-focused events. For example, last year, we had the opportunity to host an activity during the Youth Bike Summit, where we led a street redesign activity focused on safety with our active transportation planner. We'd love to explore similar engagement opportunities focused on knowledge exchange and capacity building. And as I mentioned earlier, our engagement practice is continually growing, and we look to our peers to learn and adapt our strategies. At this point, we'd like to transition to the discussion portion of the meeting, and I'm going to pass it to Michaela to facilitate that.
Thanks, Gia. Next slide, please. So as Gia mentioned, we are constantly improving our practice, and in the spirit of improving our practice and learning from our peers, we want to spend the next 30 or so minutes talking about different engagement strategies with all of you. This is not going to be the end of our discussion about the public engagement plan, but we want this to be an opportunity to really engage with you all as peer colleagues in the engagement space, to talk about youth engagement strategies that can help inform what we put in our public engagement plan in terms of strategies, and also our internal staff guidance around different engagement strategies. So with that in mind, we have a couple questions to guide this conversation, and we're going to prioritize first hearing from CAC members, and then members of the public will try to hear from you as well as time permits. And so we've got a couple questions to help guide this discussion, but welcome additional feedback and comments outside of just direct responses to the questions that we'll have throughout this time. So with that, I'm going to give just like 30 seconds for people to kind of read and digest this question. On the slide, the first question we've got to help guide our conversation is just what strategies have you found to be most successful in engaging youth in your organization's work? And so I'm going to give everybody just like 30 seconds to kind of digest that question, knowing that some people need a little bit of time to think about this before jumping in to speak. And then I'll start calling on people. So if you want to jump in to share strategies, I'd love for you to raise your Zoom hand. And again, we're going to prioritize first hearing from CAC members, and then we'll leave time for comments from the public if we have time for that. So with that in mind, we're just going to take about 30 seconds for people to kind of think about this question, think about what's been successful in your past work at your organization. And then I'd love to have people raise hands to jump in and share in response to this. All right, we're going to go ahead and get the discussion started. And I see hands from Carl and from Caitlin and then from Maha. So we'll go in the order that those hands appeared on my screen. Apologies if you all raised hands at the same time, but the way that they're showing up in my screen is Carl, then Caitlin, then Maha. So Carl, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, obviously meeting youth where they're at is critical. Just so that you can be available without kind of it's very rarely you can get teenagers into a transportation forum. But in the event where you do, engaging in terms of summits or existing events is amazing. I actually just put a link to an upcoming Youth Climate Summit this Saturday in Malden. So you can really kind of get a concentrated look. But I've always found intercept surveying to be incredibly helpful to make sure you're meeting a youth demographic. Get outside, to the infrastructure or the places where, you want to plan or design for. And ideally youth or summer interns or somebody young reflecting the diversity of the community you're going into, not with a clipboard and going to talk to folks, right? And so I think the value of intercept surveying, just like trying to reach a lot of priority populations, intercept surveying for youth engagement, I think is really important and something we've tapped into or leaned on a lot.
Thanks, Carl. Caitlin, you're up next.
Sorry about that. Similarly to what Carl said, I think, meeting youth where they're at is important. Participating in events that universities are having, whether they're sustainability events or other events and fairs, is a great way to reach out to folks, at least at the college level, and understanding what other opportunities are available for a younger segment. We've also recently had a lot of luck working with community-based organizations. In particular, the Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition has a youth group and are doing this amazing job at standing up youth and educating and empowering them around transportation issues. So I would say from an organization that is grass tops as opposed to grassroots and sort of still dipping our toes into organizing the collaboration with other folks on the ground who have those relationships can be really powerful, and sort of like wraparound services, sort of extending the ability for folks to connect by collaboration, we found has been really helpful. And I'm super excited to hear what other people have to say, because this is something we're trying to crack as well. So thank you all for your recommendations.
Yeah, plus one to stuff that all stuff that has already been said. I think one thing that I think when we did some workshops last year with youth groups, I think they're not all the same. I think depending on what youth group you're tapping into, what their interests are. We met with one youth group and I really tried to have a conversation. I think in their age, they're a little awkward and they don't like asking questions and they don't like, coming up with big statements. But I also think and that is very true. So I think something that has helped me in getting them excited or even interested in things is to see how it relates to their life. Because I think that's something that is sometimes missing in these conversations. We had a workshop last year, and one of the things I think I was trying to get at was what improvements would you love in your bus experience? And I think the way they could relate to it was oh, you know what, we would love charging stations at the bus stop because I come back from school and my phone is dead and then I need to charge it. So I think trying to understand and relate to their life experiences and then bringing it back to all these bigger transportation. So yes, that some of our infrastructure is pretty outdated and it does need these improvements. So I think it really helps if you sort of understand their interests. And often, like when you hold these workshops, you're going through a local organization that organizes them around certain things. So if you're like Marapan Food and Fitness has like transportation oriented like youths who are interested and participate, but other groups have like different kind of activities. So just finding that interest that brings them to that space and like sort of relating it that to like some of the conversations you want to have with them.
Thanks, Maha. Next up, I see a Better City.
All right, thanks. Amir Wilson with the Better City. I'm actually relating more with an anecdote from my experience being an alumnus from Boston University rather than on direct work at a Better City. But I still, engage with a particular professor of mine. I was involved in a class that was called a sustainability practicum for students. And so there are two things that I wanted to draw from this. And the first one is, there's the getting people interested in wanting to sign up for an event or to engage. That's like one can of worms. And then the other can of worms is, once someone's already at a, engagement or activity or whatever, what is the best way to then engage with people? And something I've learned from this particular sustainability practicum class, I actually took it and it was a 2-credit class at the university. And it was really focused on examining the interaction between the built environment and built environment and then the environment like ecosystem. And so, how does our infrastructure interact with the natural world? And how are these things kind of threaded together? And how can we make that more sustainable? So that was kind of the focus of that class. The thing that really brought out interaction and engagement the most with these college-age students was being able to go on walking tours. And this was held during the COVID pandemic. So the only way to really meet was to meet outside. But the way that the professor took advantage of this was to say, okay, we're going to do walking tours. We're going to orient ourselves in the physical space. So if we're talking about a particular issue or topic in the built environment, we're actually going to go and see that built environment. And we're going to talk about what we see, how it impacts other things, and what our experiences are with that stuff. And really grounding it in that tangible experience was what got people out of their shells to participate the most. Kind of like, taking it back to what Maha was saying about, sometimes people will be shy and not want to ask questions. Maybe they don't want to be wrong about something. But when you're able to bring it to a place where we're all experiencing it together, people can share their experiences that they've had in the past and relate it to what's in front of us. It makes it more welcome for a lot of people. And then the other topic on how do you actually get someone to sign up or to go to something. In this case, it was a 2-credit class. It met some of people's, essential education requirements. BU has a thing called the Hub. That's kind of what their, everyone has to hit these certain things. So there were some people who would get into this class because they're like, all right, this is a graduation requirement. So that's easy. They're coerced. But if we're talking about our organizations and our initiatives, we're not necessarily able to coerce people. But I do think, I remember, Carl, you were talking about engaging youth when they're young, like in schools, to get people to just start education early to really get folks to grow up with it. I think if we're engaging with schools, there's opportunities to partner where, maybe you come into a classroom setting and maybe there's a field trip component. I mean, that's a way to really get a wide swath of youth, and you can, make sure that you're doing this across communities. And then for, slightly older people, maybe college age students, what is there a way to develop further incentives? So I think I would leave that open. But I just wanted to share that little bit. At a Better City, we don't focus as much on engagement with youth, but I do think, from this particular experience at Boston University, I think there's some stuff to learn there because it was a particular, college kids are notorious for, I just want to get my stuff done. I don't really want to do extra. And so to see a lot of students come out of their shells and engage, I think that point about getting out in the built environment and really experiencing it is important. So thank you for the time.
Thanks, Samir. Next up, I see Paulina.
Yeah, thanks. Really appreciating this discussion. And I'll preface this by saying CLF also really doesn't directly engage youth in our organization. But I thought I would just add another, this is sort of, again, personal anecdote, because I think a lot about it, is I have a 3-year-old, so I spend a lot of time around toddlers and sort of preschool and kindergarten age kids. And I just find it so amazing, the capacity that young children really have for envisioning different ways of doing things. And these kids are obsessed with buses and trains and just want more of them and like love them. So my son included is just absolutely train obsessed. And I didn't do anything. Like I mean, yes, I maybe encouraged it a little more when I saw him becoming interested, but I think it's kind of incumbent, or I find it's incumbent upon me and those of us who are doing this advocacy and kind of in decision-making spaces to not get stuck in the sort of status quo or sort of what becomes of that imagining of a different world as you get older and not holding on to it as much. So I think we can learn a lot from youth and fully support all the ideas to get youth more involved, and maybe even very, very young youth.
Thanks, Paulina. I see a comment from Maureen in the chat about how in Gloucester, the CATA bus serves as the school bus for high school students. And so riding the bus during school hours before and after school could be helpful for getting youth engagement. Thanks, Maureen.
Yeah, sure. I just want to make another comment about that. And also going to the YMCA. I was just typing that in, but you know, places like the YMCA where a lot of youth actually gather. The one in the Cape Ann YMCA is very popular with young people. And, you know, after school, there's a lot of, especially high school students, working out. Also, like local LGBTQ or club organizations, so you can get engagement in that way. And Town Green does have a youth climate leadership program, and we work with Mass Audubon's North Shore Youth Climate Leadership Program. So, you know, going straight to them for engagement is great because they do have opinions, but we do something called a climate Q&A at Gloucester High School. And that's a great place if you can find someone in the school that could host you to come and talk to different clubs or groups. It's a one way to get right into them. And the other two high schools also have different clubs like that you could engage with.
Thanks, Maureen. And next up, I see Galen.
Cool, thanks. I think with us, with Mass Bike, I think the key that we've had success in with dealing with youth is paying them and making sure that we're offering something that usually we find youth leaders through engagement. Either they make a public comment or they reach out to us, and then we'll say, hey, do you want to write a blog for us? We'll give you $20 an hour and you spend 5 hours on it, or something along those lines. And then the second thing that we do is ask them to be leaders of things that might be a little bit out of their own wheelhouse that involve kind of an intergenerational aspect. So one of the successful things that we were able to do in Worcester, for instance, is take the 508 Bike Life youth, which are basically the wheelie kids, and ask them to lead a ride partnering with AARP, which I really appreciated. Thanks, James. I see you there. And we were like, hey, we'll pay you to route the ride and then lead the ride. And it was like a Halloween ride. So, you know, we incentivized them by making sure that they were compensated, frankly. And I think that's very important to recognize for everybody. And then the other thing that we like to do is, you know, depending on what it is, like we use our platform, MassBike, to like anybody's welcome to use MassBike's platform, but especially like if you've got an issue in your town. So if there's like a particularly tricky intersection or something, and there's you know, somebody who is young and speaking up at a public meeting, I'll kind of ask them, hey, do you want to like write a blog for us? And that might turn into something like an internship, and that might turn into something where then they go on and start working for summers at Tool Design and going to Northeastern and kind of like launch their career. So I also really like to appreciate that. We might find people at age 14 who are on a trajectory to become like full-on transformative engineers out there. And so you want to make sure that they are valued for their time and they're not just doing it for free, because you want to send them on a career path. So just throwing that out there as some ideas.
Thanks, Galen. And I see from Paulina, I see lots of things happening in the chat, bonding over the love of trains among youth. And then also related to what you just said, Galen, +1 about compensation is huge. And I think I see a raised hand. Paulina, did you have another comment, or was your hand just up from earlier?
That's an accident. Sorry.
Okay. No worries. All right. Thank you so much for all the thoughts that all of you have shared so far, that many of you have shared so far. We have one more question we want to bring up. And Megan, if you press the slide one more time. Thank you. Perfect. And so some of you have already shared a little bit of this, but thinking outside of just the work that your own organizations do, we would love to hear creative strategies that you've seen other groups use, particularly other municipalities, government agencies, and how they have engaged youth in transportation planning. I know we on our team have been thinking about this and looking at peer examples, but would love to hear from you all as well. We've got about 10 more minutes left for our conversation, and I might invite those who haven't had a chance to speak up as much yet to maybe start off in responding to this question. All right, starting off with Greg from Town Green.
Just one area that has been helpful, not necessarily in transportation, but it could be. A lot of schools have civic projects that students need to do, and so just tapping into that resource and getting engaged and lining them up to work on a senior capstone project that's focused on transportation, you may find some interest there.
Thanks, Greg. And I'm not sure what order the rest of the hands came in. So I see Caitlin, Carl, and Maha, and then Morgan. So starting from Carl, then Maha, then Morgan.
Yeah, I want to. This is a long time ago at this point, but so I helped a panel for it was called the Glocal Challenge, and it was a multi-year partnership between like EF Education First and Cambridge Ringe Latin High School, where that's Cambridge is a host community for EF's headquarters, and so basically they would host a design charrette competition, like a multi-week kind of after-school club style competition for high school students on a different like global issue every single year. In one of the years they did transportation, and so I paneled on that. And yeah, so it was like kind of really asking the students to solve their problems. And I think the winning team proposed like the kind of like iPad display panels that you now kind of are seeing being rolled out to different bus stops. I could be getting that wrong, but like that was their prototype project. And so, I think like kind of some sort of like a design charrette or a challenge was like a really unique thing. And I think it was more EF than Cambridge Ringe Latin High School that did it. But I mean, again, tapping into that kind of like education-based inquiry based learning is a really cool way to get new ideas to the fore from our youths. And a free trip to like Costa Rica doesn't help too if you have that kicking around.
Thanks, Carl. The free trip is probably beyond the MPO budget, but appreciate that very cool example nonetheless. Maha, I think I saw your hand next.
I guess like I think one city that I would love to point towards is like New York City. And I think like I've seen a lot of like really fun initiatives that Zoran Mamdani has recently done with the youth. I think he has a hand on the pulse, like this engage how to engage the youth, how to like, get them excited. One example is like snow clearance, like, and agreed with the compensation thing. I think it's such a big I just heard in a meeting today where we were talking about the youth and somebody was like, yeah, they're like, give us money and we'll do the stuff. So money is definitely higher up, and which is why I think for the snow clearance part, like I think the Zoran Mamdani administration did an amazing job by like A, making it cool to snow shovel, A, saying that you get paid. And that thing like really, I could see so many influencers and TikTokers making videos about snow shoveling and how they trained, how they got there, all the process. So I think there is something to that. I feel like, and just like building on this point, I also think like sometimes we dismiss like social media, because I think as a lot of us are growing older, we are losing touch with like Instagram and these websites and spaces. And I think some of these kids are very excited about are very are more engaged with like all these digital tools than we are. So I think like adapting our way of like promoting our things, talking about our things, because maybe Instagram is not where they hang out, maybe TikTok is that place, and maybe something else is like where they like to get their information from. And I think like some cities are really doing a good job, and I do think New York City does this really well, especially like recently with like getting like young influencers to talk about like critical projects and critical things, and like for them to like describe the issue in their own language. So just like saying there, I've seen like some really good strategies around that.
Thanks, Maha. I think I saw Morgan's hand next and then Keelan.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so just to follow up on a few things that some other folks had said, I think Greg mentioned the students having civics projects, and just from a municipal planning perspective, as a relatively like newer municipal planner, I was unprepared for the amount of like requests we got from students in Natick Public Schools last year to sort of talk to them about particular projects. And since I am a transportation planner, a lot of the requests I got were to talk about, like the rail trail in town, and how, like, whether we could expand the rail trail or where we could put bike lanes. And I just an anecdote, I remember actually with a group that was interested in like potentially expanding the rail trail, I was talking to them about how these things get funded, and like referenced the tip as like a document. So I think what's challenging about these is that, yeah, they often are obviously doing them for a grade, and then the motivation to sort of keep that up afterwards can be a little challenging. That's something I've thought about, is like how to get these people, keep these people kind of engaged in these issues. A second thing, I know I don't personally do it, but my coworker who's an environmental planner will often go into like Natick Public Schools and speak with like sustainability clubs and stuff like that. And I know they have a really good relationship there. I think it's kind of cool. And then the last thing is I used to work for the MPO in Greater Philadelphia, DVRPC, and I know that staff there would often go and like judge like youth like design and like problem solving competitions, kind of similar to what Carl was talking about. And I know they kind of use that as an opportunity to like speak to kids there. So those are just some things I was thinking of.
Morgan. Next up, I see Caitlin.
Thank you. Yeah. Just to sort of follow up on what Morgan just said as well, like we have an overwhelming number of folks who contact Transit Matters who are either from high school or in university, that either want to interview us because they're in like a communications degree and interested in transit, or just interested in general. So we're actually thinking about creating some sort of youth group as like a youth group of volunteers to see if that could be a way to funnel all of this interest out. in a constructive way, because it is quite time consuming. But there are organizations like Cradles to Crayons that have youth groups and youth programs. So, at Cradles to Crayons, they work with kids who do a project and it's over a certain amount of time. So those are potentially creative projects that students could work on that could be part of credit that they need to get if they're part of the National Honor Society or other things like that, tapping into that. We did help sponsor an MIT hackathon, which is obviously at the university level, but no reason that couldn't happen, I think, at the high school level. And then the Mattapan Fitness and Food Coalition, which is, I may or may not be saying the right way. They do bike rides with youth, and it's really actually sparked a lot of interest among the youth in that community around bikes. And I'm pointing at Molly, but he can't see me, around sort of engaging youth in the bike rides, the guided bike ride series that they're doing. So, and then like someone else said, we do always pay our volunteers, whether they're youth or not, and sometimes that could be helpful as an incentive if we want to have them do like help us flyer for something. But also all of our interns are paid at some level, so giving them payment for some of the work that they're doing. So those are some of the strategies. But if anyone has experience with creating a youth group around this, I would love to know. And then I would just say, like, the T actually is doing a great job on this. I don't know if you guys know, she calls herself the Purple Princess. She's on Love on the Spectrum, and for some reason her name is escaping me, but she's an intern with the customer relations team, and she does a lot of great social media for the tea. And then I put in a Globe article about Makai, who's this little boy who's fascinated with the tea, and he's all over TikTok. And I think he just wrote a book, or his mom helped him write a book. So lots of opportunities, it seems.
Thanks, Caitlin. And we have about 1 more minute left for this conversation. So I see a hand from Amir. So you'll be our last comment to close us out.
All right, thank you. I'll make it quick. And yeah, Princess Party, that's what I was thinking of, Caitlin, but when the name was escaping you. Just to reiterate, and I think we all are on the same page here, but just for the record, for the MPO, I think the key thing here is in engaging youth, this body has the responsibility to ensure kind of like equitable engagement. So something that we can think about, maybe this is like setting a question for a future discussion on public engagement with youth particularly, is as we kind of think about these ideas, and maybe also think about metrics, how would the MPO track initiatives to, how are they working to engage youth? And then where are the, obviously like equity factors, you think of the things that the state uses to define environmental justice communities. Those things vary spatially and with geography. And you can see, variety depending on what kinds of budgets towns have to provide experiences and opportunities for their kids. And so are we able to see differences between municipalities? And I think, using the MPO as a place to really centralize access to resources to engage youth and to give them opportunities to kind of participate in the process of advocating for transportation projects, for resilience projects, sustainability, anything that intersects with the built environment. I think, that's just something we have a really awesome kind of position to do, especially almost brokering funds as they go to all the different municipalities. So just to put that thought on there.
Thanks, Amir. All right, this is not the end of this conversation, but we really appreciate you all sharing all of those thoughts and feedback. And our team will use all of this feedback to help inform how we put together different pieces of our public engagement plan. And we'll be revisiting the public engagement plan again in May at our next meeting, but in a slightly different way. So as we wrap up in our last few minutes here, we want to create space for any members' items. And I will open up the floor if you've got, for those events that have already been shared, like the Myra bike wayfinding event, we'll make sure to capture that in this portion of the agenda. But if there's any events that people haven't mentioned or upcoming programs that you want to mention, the floor is yours. Yeah, Caitlin.
Yes, I just thought I would mention that the MBTA has launched their PMT, their sort of long run transportation planning process, and they are engaging in public engagement right now. And I know there's a meeting on the 15th in Chelsea. And I definitely would encourage folks to participate as they can in these public meetings. I'm sure I can find the website that we could circulate for the list, but I know there's one in Chelsea on the 15th. So.
Thanks, Caitlin. Next, I think I see Galen and then Amir.
Cool, great. MassBike is up to Bike Month, which is starting in May. So I'm encouraging everybody here, if you're doing anything related towards biking or biking adjacent, to get it on our Bike Month calendar, which I'm throwing in the chat here. We're going to promote the heck out of it. Last year we had over 150 events that we were promoting across the state. And obviously it doesn't have to be just May, but this is a good encouragement tool to get out and think about biking, because it's almost good riding weather. So yeah, plug into Bike Month, and more to come on that. If you want to pay attention, check out MassBike, and thanks.
Thanks, Galen. Amir.
All right, and thanks, Galen. I think we are going to make sure we end up on your calendar. A Better City is running our guided ride series for the second year. And this is basically a program, for those who don't know, that shows people how to navigate by bike in Greater Boston. We have a lot of extensive bike infrastructure that, separates you from traffic. But a lot of people don't know where it is, how to access it, or even, just elevating from riding a bike for fun to now, I need to get from point A to point B. And so this program is really designed to help people navigate that. Guidedrideseries.com is how you sign up. If you want to promote this, or you have anyone you think might be interested, or any groups, definitely check that out. And we're, ramping up our promotions of this. So we're live. I think our first ride is going to be this upcoming Saturday, if the weather holds. But we'll be riding or holding rides all throughout June, until June. So there will be plenty of opportunities, and we want to really make sure, when people kind of start thinking about Bike Month, that the Guided Ride Series is something they have access to. So thank you.
Thanks, Amir. All right, to close us out, I would like, before we do a motion to adjourn the meeting, I just want to quickly mention that we're going to be sharing out a debriefing survey just to help us plan for future advisory council meetings. So I'll put that in the chat. We'll also share that and all the other resources that have been mentioned today via email as a follow-up. But with that, this concludes our April Community Advisory Council meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved, Jason Palich.
Seconded, A Better City.
Wonderful, thank you. So just for the for our records, the motion was made by Jason and was seconded by Amir. Thank you all so much. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.